I'd like to officially welcome everyone to Smart Notes, your connected knowledge base on the go. My name is Shelley Hayduck, and I'm co-hosting with Matt Caton, our Director of Customer Solutions today.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We've got some great features to share with you today, features that we don't typically get to or reveal in like a Brain 101 class. I wouldn't necessarily call them advanced features, but just a variety of features that can really help you expedite information capture within the Brain application. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And we're going to start off. I was saying to my colleagues, this webinar is going to be a bit like a funnel with more general, broad strokes. We're going to chat a little bit about why you need knowledge capture, a bit about information architecture, and then we're going to move very specifically into like the BrainBox, syncing your brain, iOS features, and all kinds of fun stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start clicking through Smart Notes and knowledge on the go. So first of all, in terms of why you'd want to have your notes and your knowledge base anywhere, it's like having a second brain. So it's great to Google, it's great to have a folder of documents, but we get a lot of information and we're all very busy people. So putting it together in a way that helps you digest it, remember things, make new connections, help you generate insights, just puts you that much further in terms of just starting creative ideas, making you feel more prepared, and also giving you that sense of relief on even stressful projects. So, how do we get started taking these smart notes and creating this knowledge base that really can go anywhere with you? The way we do that is through our information strategy. So I'm just going to go ahead and make my thoughts a little smaller here. And in terms of information strategy, there's a couple of things. What we want to do is do some data importing and capture. So that's going to be dragging, dropping information, and so forth. And it can be a little bit of a two-pronged step where you can start with the brain, your name, your topic, drag and drop documents, or you can also start by creating meaningful categories, that taxonomy. So in terms of that, what we like to talk about here at TheBrain is no limits knowledge. And really what that means here, and I'll just make this a little bigger, is you can put anything in and any amount of thoughts into a brain. So the first step to sort of your no limits knowledge base is to collect. So you can start with your name or your project name. And then what you want to do is you can, of course, create thoughts. You can start sort of creating these conceptual buckets for, my marketing team, my sales, my daughter's preschool, my vacation, and those become anchors for where all your documents and web pages and everything sort of grows and comes together. So that's where when you're collecting, you're adding documents, and that can be by drag and drop, and we'll show you that, or importing full folder structures, which we can do as well, adding those web pages. And as far as web content, we actually have a really cool feature called BrainBox, where I really love using BrainBox for my mobile app because I'm on my phone a lot chasing after my daughter, out and about. I love to take walks outside. But obviously, I might be scrolling the news and find a great news article. So what I can do is just click and add it to BrainBox, and Matt will show us how to do that a little later on in the session. And then we've got a little box right up here where I've got my article, whatever it is, and that can just be added right into your brain. And the other thing, of course, in terms of knowledge capture is taking notes. And what we offer in the brain is smart notes capability, where you can actually select hyperlinks and link back to other thoughts. So, and a smart note means that it's not just a single note. There's a lot of talk about smart notes, and that note or that idea can be interconnected to anything else, which brings us to my next point about connections. So once you've got the information in the brain, the great thing about it is it doesn't have to stay in a folder hierarchy. It can be connected to anything else. So if I want to connect even the idea of connection to maybe my thought on data synchronization, I can do that. And now I've got this one piece of information located under many different categories. And of course, point number 3, synchronize. We can synchronize this information across all devices, and then of course that falls into sharing it. And what we also want to talk about is the modality of the information itself. So in terms of how you can look at your brain, I'm actually on the desktop client right now, but I can synchronize this brain to our cloud and look at it online. I can also look at it on my phone. And the other thing that's quite interesting too, that on the reverse of that is we also offer disconnected mode, which means if I'm a field service rep, if I'm in foreign service, if I'm a frequent flyer that doesn't always get reliable internet, we do enable you to work on your brain without the internet connection. You can have that brain accessible on your desktop, and then you can do what we call plug and chug data. As soon as you get back to an internet connection, your brain will automatically sync, so that information can be accessible kind of whenever. So how do we get started on creating this brain? Well, a couple things. I'll give you a few examples. You can create a topic-oriented brain. So this is my writer's brain here, where I've got everything from, my inspirations to my writing projects. And it's very easy to come in here and add new information. So if I want to do research on, maybe I'm doing an article on health and nutrition. I can just come in and add this thought into my brain. And from there, I can go ahead and start building my knowledge base. I might have stuff in my BrainBox that I want to go in and add, or I can actually go ahead and do a web search on that topic, which I absolutely love. I'm just going to go ahead and do this real quick. And as I do that, maybe I'll want to go ahead and grab a news article. Okay, so this is kind of interesting, mental health, and how mental health obviously affects us all, especially as we kind of emerge from the pandemic. So I've got this web page that's pretty interesting, and it's also relating to mental health and nutrition. So what I can do is simply drag this URL into below this thought and drop it. And now I've got this connected. And when I click on this thought, it's actually going to preview the web page in my content pane, which I absolutely love. Sometimes it will give you the name of the article depending on how the webmaster tags it, or I can go ahead and change this to mental health awareness. And now I've got that particular article in my brain. And I can continue to grab articles. Okay, on maybe this is kind of interesting, surfer's diet. So again, I'm simply grabbing the article, and then I can navigate to where I want it. If I want to put it below mental health, that doesn't really make sense. I probably want it right under health and nutrition. If I want it somewhere else, I can just go ahead and do that. And I can simply, first of all, I can go ahead and add it to my BrainBox right here just by clicking to add it, and then it will be, so if I don't actually even know where I want to put it, or I don't have my brain open, or I'm on my mobile device, that's the same thing too. I can click on my BrainBox and get it in there. But in this case, I'm going to kind of say more BrainBox stuff for Matt. I'm simply going to drag and drop it under health and nutrition to create. Now I have 2 child health thoughts there, and you can see how that gets added. So I'm just sort of building this, and if I want to go ahead and continue, I've got some desktop folders here. I can go ahead and drag and drop. I've got a personal journal that has some health related items, so I'm simply going to take this Word document and drag and drop that into the brain, and then I've got that document, and I've got a full folder set here. that actually has stuff on health and different types of nutrition. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go up to File, and I'm going to select Import. And I'm going to do a folder import. So this is if I have existing information that I want in the brain. Now I could absolutely drag and drop those folders individually, but because I have a pre-existing folder structure that I want, I'm going to click on folder. And I actually want to not create a new brain with this, but you can do that, which is also kind of cool. I can add it to my writer's brain. And I'm just going to go ahead and get that folder. And now it's going to let me sort of browse what I want. So I want this my projects, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my personal health research, which has 2 folders in it, and hit OK. And now I'm just going to go ahead and select import it. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and now it's going to import all that information as well. So the advantage of doing this, and why would I want to do this as opposed to, hey, it's right here on my desktop, why do I need that? Well, there's a couple reasons. First of all, I want to connect it to other things in my brain, and I can't do that if it's isolated in a folder. Secondly, unless I'm using Dropbox or Google Docs or something, but in this case, I'm just using, this is just a folder on my desktop. I can't synchronize this folder across the web to other people and on my phone like I can in the brain. So that's given me a lot of cool stuff. So, you know, I can go ahead and look at this. What it's done here is, and I can just open it up and show you that same folder structure. It takes the folders and the contents and adds it in. So the personal health research that I had on my desktop got imported, and I got a thought on gluten-free diet. And these are PDFs, and I'll just make my brain a little bigger here so you can see it's really quite nice to be able to view the PDF in our PDF viewer. And I can also look and I can see that I've got 3 different articles in this particular folder. And of course I can close this. This is my document viewer. I can close that and I can see the documents this way in my content area. So if I'm interested in looking at celiac disease, which is related to a gluten-free diet, you know, I can go ahead and look at that article, close that, or, you know, continue to browse around. And then I've got the same thing here with plant-based nutrition. So that's how you go ahead and import. And then from there, that might be related to some other topics that I want to talk about. So I might create a new thought here for mindfulness. And under this particular thought, I'm just going to create multiple thoughts. Maybe I want to have, I can have mindful eating. I'm going to have yoga and connections to nature. So now I'm using the semicolon to create multiple thoughts. And I just want to create these thoughts so you can get kind of a couple examples of, well, I started off by dragging information in, dragging some web pages, dragging, you know, some documents, importing a folder. But I can also now just create a conceptual space for myself to think about and grow. And of course, I can go ahead and talk about my connections to nature. And there's an interesting concept called, that I like, called Japanese forest bathing. And I probably haven't spelled that right, but that's okay. No judgment in the brain. And that's the one thing. You can have different thoughts. I have to go ahead and change that. There's an article on National Geographic. I can clean that up, but I'm just getting it in. I'm not thinking about this too much. I'm going to drag and drop that. And I'm going to go ahead and change this thought here just to clean it up a bit. And there's that link. And so that's a good segue to kind of diving deeper into notes. So of course I've got my web page here, but I can also take notes on kind of my intentions. If I've read the article, this can be very helpful to de-stress just go ahead and, after spending much time on my computer. So now I'm going and taking that note, and this note is connected to this actual piece of information, and this is connected to this particular document. And the other thing that's kind of cool, if I have a project that's really stressing me out, let's see, I'll go up here to projects, just go back to my top level, and I've got my different writers resources in my writing projects, and I'm actually doing some corporate brochures, but this corporate brochure is taking longer than I thought, and so I'm actually going to put a link to Japanese forest bathing, so that way, you know, as I do this, I can kind of think, okay, I can relax, see the trees in the forest, that kind of thing. So you can make all kinds of connections, and your notes can grow even smarter with backlinks and so forth. So I think I'm going to pass it over to you, Matt, so that now you can kind of dive even deeper into the notes section.
Fantastic, thank you. So I'll just take presenter, and your demo on notes brought up some great
I
questions.
saw a
James
lot coming
Jordan
in.
had questions about,
Yeah. Okay.
you know, block coding and formatting. So
Yeah.
let's get started there with some smart notes.
Sounds good.
And I will stand by while I
So
share my screen.
those were basic notes, and this is your
Yeah,
basic. And now that funnel's starting, we're going to drill more into the details of those automatic recognition, backlinks, and so forth, or wherever Matt takes us. All right.
great, great. So we're going to start off today with my demo, portion of the demo, talking about smart notes. And first, let's talk a little bit about the formatting of notes. And I'm going to be in my real brain today. This is my brain that I use almost on a daily basis, keeping track of my own family hobbies and activities and interests. And I thought, what better way to show you how I use these features that I want to highlight today, rather than um, um, clicking through a sample brain. This is the real deal. So this is my brain, and it's all about an upcoming family trip. My family is planning to Zion. We've been planning for years. In this area of the brain, you can see I never delete old content, old notes. Here are all of my old plans. Things came along, interrupted us. We were never able to make it to Zion. For years, we've been wanting to go, and I can refer back to plans of, you know, where we were planning on staying at that time. COVID came along, and suddenly we couldn't fly. We didn't want to stay in a hotel, and it just wasn't working out. So this year we're planning it again, and we're family road trip camping, staying at my parents halfway there, and tent camping, taking all the gear with us. So let's start talking about taking some detailed notes. Notes are formatted using Markdown, and that's a very, very important component of today's topic. Markdown allows us to add content into the notes and format it in a way that is very clean, neat, and uniform throughout your brain. If I were to just type down below, you know, be sure to bring the 8-person tent. I want to select bring the 8-person tent and make this bold. I can actually format sort of in line. If I add 2 asterisks on either side, it makes it bold. I can also select a word and use the buttons in the brain's toolbar, the notes toolbar up above. So if you're not familiar with Markdown, don't worry about it. Just use the buttons that are available for you in the brain's toolbar. So the word sure is highlighted. I can select that and make it italicized, make it underlined. And notice when I click away from the note, all of the Markdown formatting, the Markdown syntaxes or tags no longer appear. So it's a very nice, clean display throughout all of the notes within your brain. If you want to know more about formatting with Markdown, there is a button in the brain the notes toolbar. Just click on the question mark, and it's going to take you to our cheat sheet. And this will explain to you how you can do all of this formatting, either what the button does or how you can type that in line to make these formatting modifications. James Jordan specifically had the question about block coding. So if I have a lot of content, let's just go further down. Also do this, also do that. So I'm just adding some content. If at the beginning of this block of text, I forget what the actual item is called. It's not an apostrophe. It's right next to the 1 key on your keyboard. Tiny little dashes. I add 3 of them there and then go to the end of the line and 3 more, and it puts that code into a block. And you'll see maybe if I click around, I use that feature from time to time, particularly in my professional brains. You know, the customer reports that, and I want to have the customer's actual words in a little text. I'll enter that block code, and once again, I click away, and you no longer see those dashes. So that's a little bit about the formatting. And you can learn much more simply by clicking on this question mark and going through all the different markdown formatting, or play around with these buttons and features up above to, to find out what they do one by one. Let's start talking about using some of this formatting to our advantage. I'm going to go down into, I'm spending 2 days in Zion. And as you can see, I like to break down my notes. I'll click around to a few different places. Arches National Park. I've got restaurants, best hikes, hotels. Sometimes it's hotels and campgrounds, tips, notes, and so forth. Bryce Canyon, I'll probably have the same thing. Restaurants, best hikes, hotels. When my family goes camping, we want to know where to eat, where to stay, and what to do. So those are some pretty top priority plans for us, and thus the basis for how I start mapping out my notes. Now, I'm going to add a couple of things. And up top of restaurants, I'm just going to add, I like to do, once again, inline. So I add just the pound symbol and a space and say Zion. And if I do 2 pound symbols, that's there's titles and subtitles, important things. And then down below, tips and notes are sort of, my friends have said, hey, be sure to do this, be sure to do that. Notes, I typically write in after I've been to this place, what I felt about it and what I'll share with others if they ask me. So this is more personal information. So once again, I'll do 2 pound signs, and I can get there by the drop-down menu. 2 pound signs is a subtitle. So H2 can get there in your formatting drop-down menu up above. So 2 pound signs, personal thoughts. So I've added this nice formatting of using headers and titles and subtitles. The advantage on this long note is that I can either place it into my note or just pull up a pop-up table of contents. There's a little button up above, looks like a book, and it's going to insert table of contents. So for a really long note, if you've got it formatted properly and you're utilizing these subtitles and titles and so forth, I can even right-click on the background, the pop-up table of contents. The shortcut on a Windows machine is Control-T, but I can just click, and you can see here are all of the different categories within the note. So in a really long note, and please believe me, I didn't want to get, go to a note that had a lot of content to confuse everyone. This one is pretty basic, but if I want to look at, the best campgrounds to stay at, I can click and go to hotels and campgrounds and find my easy little list. So that's the table of contents. And if this gets too long and unwieldy, all the information that I'm adding into my note, I'll just go up to the top and I'll click the button to just place table of contents right there at the top of the note. Anytime I come back to this note, regardless of what I'm looking for, what were all the tips and important things I was supposed to see, I can just click and go right to that area. Now, this exposes another feature. You may have noticed at the bottom of Shelley's thoughts and mine as well, we have these additional categories down below. And now I'm going to take some time to share with you mapped links, backlinks, and unlinked mentions. These are 3 new features in the Brain 12. The table of contents is in the Brain 12 as well. I saw a lot of questions coming in the chat about version 12. It's currently in beta. If you go to our download page on our website, there's the Brain 11 and the Brain 12 beta. You can run both on the same machine or install both. You can't run them at the same time on Windows, but you can have them both installed. We are demoing today in the Brain 12, sharing with you some of these exciting features. It's very stable. We're really finding cosmetic things that we're ironing out right now. Don't have a release date, so go ahead and save that question. The answer is no release date available quite yet. But in 12, you can turn on and off your mapped links, backlinks, and unlinked mentions. The map links are quite simple. It is an outline of exactly what we're seeing over in the Plex. So you can see I'm on a thought called 2 days in Zion, and here's all the information I need for 2 days. Down below are some resources, and related information is a jump thought under the category of Zion Plan E for my family's trip. You can see in my mapped links, if I go up from Zion, I'm going to Zion Schedule Plan E. My sibling thoughts, Arches, Bryce Canyon, and a Gmail confirmation that I received for some reservations are all there. My Zion hiking map is a jump thought, and down below are all of my resources. So if I want to look at bike rentals in Zion, I can click here and go to that particular thought in the Plex, and it updates the mapped links. So mapped links is just a nice way of navigating through the Plex, sometimes without the Plex being visible. If I'm really focused on all my notes and I just want to click around through the structure of the brain that I've created, I can continue to do so with the mapped links that show up as a footer below the notes. These can be turned on and off, whether it's in your preferences or if I just right click in the background, I can turn on and off individually my map links, my backlinks, or my unlinked mentions. So I'll turn map links off now that we've discussed those, and let's focus on backlinks and unlinked mentions. First, I'm going to talk about unlinked mentions. And to do that, I'm going to bring the Plex back. And I'll go back up to my Zion schedule, Plan E. And at the bottom, I'm just going to make myself a couple of notes. And this is for, although it falls under Zion, we're also going to be stopping by Arches and Bryce. So this is just my sort of general itinerary for this trip. And I want to give myself a couple of reminders down below. So be sure to purchase some new headlamps and a, gosh, I think it's called a canway. Now, notice in that sentence that I just typed in, purchase is underscored in red because I spelled it wrong. So thank goodness for spell check, which could be turned on and off in your notes. So I can easily fix that. Now, headlamps and canway are both underlined in blue. The blue setting is a setting in your preferences. So that could be orange or green, depending on what your brain theme is. But regardless, it's a dashed line that is underlined. It's not a misspelling. It's actually telling me that there is a thought in my brain that exists with whatever it is I've typed in so far. So your notes are helping you to discover information that your own organic brain may have forgotten that you already had. Now headlamps, oh, I thought I could even see that on the screen. I cannot. I can right click and I can activate the headlamps thought, or I can link to headlamps. The same with canway. What is a canway? Canway is a little stove that I've always wanted and want to take one camping. And instead of running off of gas, it just runs off of twigs and branches and leaves that you find around the campsite. So I can right click and let's activate canway and go to that thought. Here it is. I've got a couple of notes on my canway thought. I've got a link on Amazon where I can buy a canway twig stove. Back on the notes, look down below. My unlinked mentions are showing me everywhere else in this particular brain where canway is being mentioned. Mirror Lake, a trip that I did back in 2019. On my tips, my personal area where I sort of review like what happened with the trip, what I liked, what I didn't like. I mentioned I should have brought my canway stove. I ran out of cooking gas on that trip, and if I had a canway, I would have been fine. So I made a note about it, and I still haven't purchased one. And there you can see under Zion schedule plan E, I'm mentioning that that I would like to purchase a Canway stove. And of course, I can click on my unlinked mention and go right back to that thought. So the notes are really helping you as your brain grows and evolves over time to discover information you may have thought you or may have forgotten that you actually already created. And here, even in my itinerary, Gooseberry Camping, I can right click and go to the Gooseberry website where you can learn about their cabins and campgrounds and so forth. The Gmail is my confirmation for that I've pasted in with reserving our campsite, and that all falls under my schedule plan E. So those backlinks really help you just to discover information. They'll show up for you like you've seen as I'm just clicking and navigating through the site. Now, if I want a permanent link, so an absolute permanent link to this Canway thought, I can simply right click and link to Canway. And that way I don't need to right click in the future. I could be reading through my brain and realize, oh, we've got a week to go before the vacation starts. I better purchase my product. I can click and get to that thought and log on to Amazon and make that purchase. So now notice on Canway, that's showing up as a backlink. So that is quite simply the difference between an unlinked mention. So the word is being mentioned on this other thought versus a backlink. The word is actually being linked on this other thought. So you've got a lot of choices when you're creating your brain. Do you want to actually visualize the link to this, this other topic? Or do you just want a link to it in your notes or an optional link so you can right click and navigate to that thought? A few different options, but you'll notice these mentions will always appear first as you're typing, and then it's up to you to convert that mention into a backlink if you'd like. Or from here, now that I've got a backlink, maybe I just want to permanently link this up to my plan E, Zion schedule plan E thought. So I can permanently link it so I don't lose track of that. Or I maybe even make a subcategory for things I need to buy, and my Canway is going to go under there. So once again, I can still see a link to it, but it's not showing up visually in the brain. It falls on in this structure. It falls under things I need to buy right now. So that's a little bit more about backlinks and mentions. You can play around with that feature a little bit if you go into options and preferences. On the notes editor tab, you can specify how sensitive you want your backlinks to be. I like to show all. If it's a backlink, fine, it's there. But if I have a thought called camping, then camping it's a very common word, especially in my brain. It's going to show up as a backlink all over the place. I don't mind. You might want to turn on so just unique words or uncommon words are what's being backlinked. Or you can completely turn them off if you'd like. I like to have all of my mentions as I'm typing show up, so I leave mine on show all. And again, those features can be turned on and off. If you choose not to use those backlinks and mentions, I can right click and uncheck those. Another thing that I want to share with you really quickly, let me get back to my 2 days in Zion. If I create a thought in the future, so I'm talking a lot about my best hikes. I've got so many thoughts in here of places that I've been camping with my family or want to go camping and keep track of the best hikes. If I go to my camping thought, so let's just, oh, there, type in camp and go to camping. So I've got a thought just generally called camping. If I choose in the future to create a thought called best hikes, the advantage of those backlinks and mentions is that as soon as I create the thought called best hikes, I can see where I've mapped out all my best hikes elsewhere in the brain. I've created my list of best hikes for Arches National Park, Bryce Canyon, coast to coast, Key West, Sanibel Island, back to Yellowstone, and I can visit all of those to review, the best hikes, or in this case, those are the best beaches in Key West or Sanibel Island. So I map those out quite a bit for all the different places that we travel. And that's another advantage that I've been capitalizing on as I create my brain, because I have these and I utilize, these subheadings and subtitles. I'll often find them useful when I create a new thought and it's showing me wherever that thought appears within the note content of my brain. So let's go ahead now and talk a little bit about bringing content into the brain a few different ways, and talk specifically about the differences between bringing web content in from your desktop device and then into iOS or mobile devices as well. So I'm going to jump back to Zion, and actually under Zion 2 days in Zion, I had created a thought called headlamps. And the reason why, I can see the reason why, is because right here I mentioned one of the hikes is called Angel's Landing. You hike up and watch the sunset, apparently it's very beautiful. Guess what? You've got to hike back and it's going to be dark and you're on the side of a mountain. So you need headlamps. So that's why this thought is here. So I can click to go back to Zion in 2 days and review where I, took that note under my best hikes area. Let's go ahead and bring that content, some content for shopping for headlamps, into my brain. So I'm just gonna start with drag and drop. We demo this quite a bit. Hopefully, maybe you're familiar with the brain. Bring your web content into the brain. It's one of my favorite features. Here's a headlamp that I really, really like. I can first navigate to the headlamp's thought and then back to my browser. I've got this great information on a headlamp that's on sale, two for one, a good price, click and drag, perfect. I've got my thought created in the brain. It named it Amazon.com. I can Alt click. And the reason why I like this headlamp is because they have 500 lumens. It's all about the 500 lumens for me. So that's how bright the headlamp is. So great, I've preserved that information. That's really the easiest way to get content into the brain. But today's topic is all about information on the go. You're in a hurry. We're always in a hurry. We stumble across a web page that we like, and to open your brain, navigate to the brain that you want to preserve that information in, navigate to the area of that brain where you want to preserve that information. Those are a few extra steps. I'm in a webinar right now. I don't have time to be wandering through my brain, but I happen to stumble across a really great website. And this is all about hiking the Narrows, another website or another hike elsewhere in Zion. I don't want to go navigating through my brain where to store this information. I'm going to send it into the brain through BrainBox. So BrainBox, as you can see, is a nice little Chrome extension. You can go to, Chrome has their own extension site. We've got a BrainBox page on our website. If you go to thebrain.com/BrainBox, you can learn all about BrainBox, what browsers it works in, how to use it from just for files or web content. I have installed the BrainBox Chrome extension here in Chrome. So all I need to do is click, and you can see that this web page, it happens to be a YouTube video, has been added into my BrainBox. I'm gonna grab one more just so you can see. Here's the wood stove, one of the wood stoves that I like. This one is particularly expensive, but maybe Father's Day is coming up, you never know. So let's add that into my BrainBox as well. So now I've got some free time. It's time to go back into the brain. And this is the way that I like to get to the BrainBox. There's a little button up here. I can click and see a list of all of everything that I've added. And there you may have just noticed that wood burning stove just popped up on top of the list. So these are all of my BrainBox items. In this case, well, there's one file, there's an image file, but most of these are web pages that I've added, placed into my BrainBox, and I have yet to add them into my brain. So the Zion Narrows, if I want to preview, what was this? Yes, it was the page where Guy shows a lot of tips about, where to go, where to find food before you get in, what you should bring, what you shouldn't bring, and so forth. Great, great hiking tip. So under Days in Zion, I'm going to create a thought for my planned hikes.
And by the way, Matt, I recommend just hiking Angel's Landing in the day.
That's
Should
probably a good trip,
Google some
especially with
pictures
kids.
and add them in. You can change your background.
Absolutely.
It's
I
quite
certainly will.
interesting from a adrenaline perspective. You'll
I certainly will consider
just
that,
a
especially
little
hiking
tip.
with a 12-year-old kid. Yes.
Maybe just save the headlamps for some of the other hikes and do Angel's Landing in the day. But anyway, back to
So here's my planned hikes, and I click on the little BrainBox icon. Now, also just to share with you, I can click to add an attachment. Do I want to add a file, a new web page, or do I want to add something from BrainBox? We can get there here as well. And here is my Zion, the Narrows hike. If I click on the plus sign, I'll create a new child thought. I can preview it. I can delete it if I know I don't want it, or the paperclip adds it to the current active thought. I click on plus. It's no longer in my brain box. It has now been added into the correct location inside my brain. And I can go and look at my brain box. Here's, this is actually called a Queen Amman. It's a sourdough roll that I made, my kids and I made for my wife on Mother's Day. And so something completely different. And I can go to Mother's Day now that I have the time. So there's Laura's Mother's Day and recipes for 2021. And we made this, and we made the Queen Ammans. And so now that I'm cleaning up my brain box, I can click and add that recipe right there into the brain. So it's a really, really great way to quickly grab information that you don't know where it's going to live yet, or you just don't have the time to open the brain, navigate to the area, drag and drop, and so forth. Throw it into your brain box, and at a later date, you can come in and clean up. About a week ago, my brain box was at least twice this size, but I go in from time to time and clean it up. And this is real content in my brain box of things that I need to organize. Now you can do files as well. Before I jump over to my iPhone, I want to share with you that you can add files into BrainBox. So here I've got a couple of sample files, and this is some materials research for a project that I'm working on. This goes into my business brain, not even the brain that I'm demoing or sharing with you today. There's nothing additional that needs to be installed like there is in a web browser to send files and documents from your local drive into BrainBox. I simply, on a Windows machine, right-click and select Send to BrainBox. And that materials research document goes over into BrainBox. Now, I've got my brain set up so anytime I'm bringing something into the brain, it moves into the brain. So notice it's no longer there. That file has been moved internally in my brain box. And now when I get to my business brain, I can capture that document and bring it into the desired location. So we're going to go ahead now and switch over to iOS. And to do that, I've got a nice little sort of simulator here that runs in the background. So just give me a moment to set this up.
And that's
I
great,
need
Matt,
to
because we
turn on my
actually
home.
had some questions of how does the brain actually look in iOS or on your mobile? And it's like, okay, well, instead of showing our phones in the webcam,
Yeah,
we actually have
holding
a
up my phone and
simulator for you
typing.
today.
So you
Oh,
can
there we
see,
are.
if you're looking at both at the same time, you can see this is, I'm navigating through the phone in my hand. This is my phone. These are all my apps. That is my dog on the wallpaper. And this is my brain. So you can install the brain on iOS or on Android. And we're on the Apple Store and the Google Play Store to install on your mobile device, iPad, iPhone. I'm on my iPhone today, and I'm going to launch my brain. Down below, and here I'll use a combination with the mouse, you can see there's a sync button. There's a search. I can click, if I tap here on my phone, I can go back to my brains list so I can find any brain I happen to be looking for. And some thoughts have attachments. That's a little blue paperclip and the note. So if I press on those, I can open up the note for that particular thought, and I can leave new notes. So I'm on a thought called weekend checklist. So if I need to paint the back door, I hit return and paint door. There we go. And when that gets checked off, I can simply, whoops, check it off the list and return back to the brain. Everything that I do here in the iOS version of the brain, when I sync, I'll tap on the little cloud icon. So their sync goes off in the background. And here in the brain, if I go to my, whoops, weekend checklist, so I'll see that any changes that happen in the phone will happen on the desktop app as well. Now let's talk about BrainBox. First and foremost, my BrainBox is still available. So if I tap on, oops, there's my brain. There you can see weekend checklist, and I'll just do a sync, and it'll update with what I changed here on my phone. There's paint doors showing up. So you can see the key two are staying in sync. But here is my BrainBox. So it's the exact same list. For my BrainBox is associated with my account. So whatever device I have running the brain, I can access my BrainBox. There's that materials research. There's the wood burning stove. So if I navigate to things I need to buy for my Zion trip, so I'll go to my national parks and I'll go to Zion, Schedule E, and things I need to buy. I am going to add a link to that solo stove. So attached to things I need to buy. So I actually just attached it to the thought itself, since that's a really important item that I need to buy. I don't want it as a child thought. It's right there as the file attachment, and I can launch it. I just tapped on the icon on the thought, and it takes me right to the solo stove webpage in my browser. Let's say I get a little sidetracked and I start clicking through my browser. And I've done this ahead of time, and I find a really great piece of information about hiking the Narrows, Zion Adventures. This is some really, really helpful information, where to rent your shoes, what you need to bring with you, and so forth. I really want to make sure we get this hike right, because it's sort of a crazy hike through a river. And I want to add this to my BrainBox. When you click on the share icon and scroll down, there it is at the very bottom, add to BrainBox. Any web page that I go to, I always have the option, hey, this looks like some really, really good information. I want to send it into my brain. I'll simply add it into my BrainBox, adds it right in. And now when I return back to the brain and I open up my BrainBox, there's Zion Adventure Company right at the top. And even here in my desktop brain, if I open up my BrainBox, Zion Adventure Company right at the top of the list. So the two are being kept in sync. I've got that information in my BrainBox, and it could be distributed not only to the right brain, but to the right, to the correct location in the desired brain. And so again, BrainBox is associated with your account. You need to have the brain open and be logged in and just have it at least running in the background for like, especially when you're on your computer, so that you find a website, you say send it to the BrainBox. It knows what account to send that web page to. If you're not logged in a separate browser tab or window, then tapping on or clicking on add to BrainBox will open up the login screen. So you can log into the brain, and the BrainBox functionality will know what account to send that BrainBox item to. So I think with that, that's everything that I wanted to share with you today. Hopefully you learned some new ways to grab information on the go, get it into your brain, new ways to format and utilize those features within your notes. And with that, Shelly, I'll send it back to you. We can leave my phone open if we've got more phone questions, or jump onto the desktop for the QA.
All right, very good. Yeah, we do have a lot of questions, and we're all ready to go to Zion now. I'm jealous.
Me too, believe me. It's
I
been
can't.
years and years.
Yeah, I have 10 years ago. It's been a while. But I guess yes, there's a lot of questions, and we're going to cover even some that Chase got to answer. But real quick, I think I just want to take a step back, and some of the newer users were wondering, when we're on the desktop, just how online the relationship to desktop to mobile works. So if we just want to cover the online menu and the sync in terms of, obviously what you want to do is be
Sure.
able to sync that brain across all your devices. And there's a lot of questions. A couple people asked about, can I use the brain on my Mac laptop? So the answer is yes. We are
Absolutely.
cross-platform. So typically the workflow, most people, you don't have to do it this way. Start with downloading the desktop client, whether you're on
Mhm.
Mac or PC, on your laptop. And then from there, and synchronized to the cloud, and Matt will kind of we'll
Yes.
jump into that,
Yes.
and then from there, that synchronization allows you to sync to multiple machines, different people, the cloud, your mobile devices, get your BrainBox going, and that's kind of the starting point, and then of course you
That's
get to
right.
do all these
The
fun
the
things.
the desktop application is feature rich. So most of the features, the best search capabilities, and creating other features we didn't even discuss today, thought types and tags and running reports against your data, all of those exist within the desktop application. So you can download the desktop application and install it on a Windows machine or on Mac. As Shelly mentioned, we're cross-platform compatible so that when you do sync your brain up to app.thebrain.com, you then have an online version available. So I'm going to click on the sync icon. It's going to tell me I'm up to date on my sync. There's a drop-down menu, so I can have my brain sync automatically in the background. That's what I prefer. And it's telling me it's completely up to date. And now I can click on this online button at the top of the screen. And let's say I want to see this thought, this Zion thought in my web browser, the online version of my brain. Open thought in web client. So here I'm logged into app.thebrain.com, and I've got all the information that's available in my brain available from a web browser. This means I can access my brain database from my wife's laptop, from if I'm at a coffee shop at a kiosk and there's a free computer with internet access, I can log in and get information out of my brain. But most importantly, I can now sync my brain to other devices. So I can install the brain on my MacBook and download a copy, keep the two in sync, MacBook and Windows Desktop, and my mobile devices as well. You can use all or one of those features. There are people out there that only use the brain by logging into app.thebrain.com, and they use the features that are available through the web client. I've spoken with people that just download the brain for their mobile devices. They don't sync. They've got a local version of their brain on their mobile device to store all of their favorite web pages. When you're on the desktop, this is a local version. I can completely disconnect from the internet right now and I still have access to my brain. When it tries to load up a web page, the web page wouldn't load up. But regardless, all of my notes and internal file attachments are here on my desktop application. All that internal data is synced to the cloud, available online if it's an internal attachment, and to mobile devices. You can also share. I saw the question come up about sharing your brain. Now that I've synced my brain to the cloud, I can click on online and go into brain access and sharing. Now notice this is my personal brain. I don't share this with anyone and I don't make it publicly accessible. If I did, you could go to this URL and see my brain and navigate through my brain. Shelly will share her brain with you today, the brain that she created for the start of the demo. That's available online. You could download your own copy or you can visit that brain online. So there's many different ways that you can share a brain. If you create a brain that you really want the world to see, or just your spouse or your friends, you can certainly, there are different ways that you can share that brain, all the way up to collaborating with Team Brain. multiple people interacting. That's a different license type, but multiple people interacting in the same brain database. Those are options as well.
And you can do spin-off brains. Like I could see, for instance, if Matt wanted to just do a content-specific Zion brain, he could
Mhm.
grab his Zion thoughts, copy and paste them into a new brain, and we can all collaborate. So that's sometimes where I'll start in my larger brain and do a spin-off brain, or conversely, I will import my smaller brains into my master brain. So it can go either way. So if Matt did
Yes,
decide he wants to publicize maybe just his Zion section, he can go ahead and do that as well.
absolutely.
All right, and we have some questions on backlinks. I'm going to go back to Marizano. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. If the brain isn't seeing any thoughts with that blue feature, is that something that needs to be activated? So, the way that works.
Yeah.
And then we responded, yes, those are automatic mentions that the brain picks up, but also within notes, you can create hyperlinks to even other thoughts. So maybe we can talk a little bit about those specific blue links, the mentions and
Sure.
notes, and how to add to them, and also to connect thoughts as well.
Absolutely. The first thing that I always mention to anyone that has that type of question, like, oh, I typed something in, but it's not showing up. It's not underlined. Most likely it's that setting that I shared with you. If you go into your preferences and on the notes editor, try switching over to show all. If you've got it set to show except common words, you might have a thought called dog. Very common word. Hey, I type in the word dog and it's not underlined as a mention. You might have show except common words turned on, or never show, and you'll never get any backlinks, or well, you'll never get any mentions showing up. So try switching over to show all. After that, I would say check the spelling, because it's very sensitive to the spelling. If I were to spell headlamps wrong, just type in a random headlamps, then I don't have a thought named Heglamps, so it doesn't show up. So check that spelling to make sure you've got it spelled correctly, and the blue underline should be there. Also, this is a feature of the Brain 12, the Brain 12 beta. So if you're still running the Brain 11, these backlinks and mentions are not going to appear there. And you can even turn off, it has nothing to do with the content that's appearing down below. I can right click and turn off my backlinks and turn off my mentions, and notice that they'll still activate, they'll still be there. I just don't have that nice little view of, hey, where does this thought exist on all my other thoughts, as you will see if you've got those backlinks and mentions turned on. Personally, I like to navigate through the Plex, from thought to thought. So I don't turn on my mapped links. I know some people that don't even look at the Plex anymore. They only navigate through their mapped links. So it's just a personal choice, really. But this is my default setting. I leave my backlinks and mentions turned on. So if I go to a particular thought, I can see where that thought might be getting mentioned in other areas of my brain.
And of course, the brain is all about connections. So as you saw earlier in my demo, and Matt can show again, to connect, if he wants to connect his smaller tent to another trip, he simply drags a link from thought to thought. And also within the notes area, though, you can take something that isn't um, connected to anything and hyperlink it to another thought that doesn't have the same mention. So you can create your own mention. So maybe, Matt, if you want to show
Yeah.
how to hyperlink just a phrase in your notes to another thought in your brain, that's also very
Sure,
useful.
sure. So Nika camping, this is mountain biking camping that I do with my kids. But let's say I mentioned that I had a rough night of sleep in the tent. So what's going to help me with a rough night of sleep is probably getting a new camping pad for underneath my whatever, wherever I'm sleeping in my sleeping bag. So rough night of sleep, I can select that and I can click on the link icon, or I can right click to start
And
typing in the name of another thought. So I'm
five-star
gonna,
hotel.
There we go.
Five-star
That
hotel.
might do it, but kind of hard to find
Okay,
out in
you
the
don't
middle
have
of
any in
a
your brain.
cornfield somewhere.
Okay.
So I'm going to say camping. There it is, camping
Yeah.
pad 1 and 2. Oh, I saw it showing up.
And the point is, he can link this to anything. Like he could
Yeah.
link
Oh,
it
camp
to
pad. That's it.
Laura, or
Exactly.
his sofa in Milwaukee. It's just that you can create your own customize. It's a great thing with the brain. You get your combination of our auto discovery, even when you're creating a thought in the Plex, and then of course with the notes. But at the same time, your own little manual entries and connections are of course golden as well. So you can sort of have your cake and eat it too,
Yes.
with this.
Absolutely. So I just took a phrase, rough night of sleep, and notice when I click on that, I go straight to this camp pad that I
That looks pretty good.
want to purchase. Not too shabby, not too
Yeah, I
shabby.
don't know if it's five-star hotel, but it looks pretty good.
That's a
Looks pretty
one
good.
star, but still a
Okay.
star. So, and of course, you can do that by just selecting a phrase, right clicking, and insert thought or web link.
Hmm.
Control K is the keyboard shortcut, or you can use the buttons in the toolbar up above. So many different ways to make those connections. Or just simply link it into the brain as well in a visual link. I can click and drag, and let's say I am looking for a hotel. I can type in Hotel de Fleur is where I want to stay. I can make that link. That's actually a hotel in Paris, so that's
All
not
right.
from. I'll
That
unlink.
sounds good. But so does hiking in Zion. We've been quarantining for way far too long.
Yeah, we're
You
looking
see where this
across the
brain's
globe.
going.
How are we going to get out there? Absolutely.
All right, great. And then back to BrainBox. Actually, Brian had a question about how you get your icon or picture that he saw on the BrainBox.
Are you referring to the picture right next to the brain?
Yes,
So there's the brain
yes,
box.
the avatar.
So yes, so the brain will look for a gravatar with your email address. So when you've got a brain license, you associate that license with an email address. I'm bob@gmail.com. Go to www.gravatar, Gravar, gravatar.com, and associate an image with your email address through Gravatar. It's sort of an industry standard. A lot of people use Gravatar. Some websites or apps you use is using Gravatar and maybe not even telling you about it. But that's what we use, Gravatar. So I associate that's a picture of me with Gravatar, and so it shows up there in the brain.
And I had a picture of a percula clownfish. So you can use kind of whatever
Yes,
you want, whatever feels like
and
you, go
update it
for it.
as often as you'd like.
Yes.
Yep.
And just to let you know, we are on the hour. We will go into overtime for another 10 minutes because we've gotten just a ton of questions and love the questions. Thank you so much for your participation. But for those of you that do have time constraints and need to leave on the hour, I want to thank you for joining us. And multiple questions coming in. Will this session be recorded? Yes, it's being recorded. Yes, you will be emailed a link automatically as an attendee. And we will also post it on our homepage and on our blog. So if you missed anything or want to run through some features, do feel free to watch that recording and also join us this week on Friday for the Brain 101. I know we had some newbies with some basic questions, and that's cool too. You might be just starting. This webinar was diving very deep, very fast into information on the go. If you need to take a step back and just start with the basics, the beginning, join Matt on Friday on the Brain 101. And now with that, we're going to go for 10 more minutes. So if you can stay on, great. There's quite a few more questions that I'd like to highlight and cover. Okay,
Great.
so there's a question from Jim about your workflow when something gets in the BrainBox. Do you
Mm-hmm.
clean that up when you select it to add it to a thought? Does it automatically delete? What's your workflow for when something's in the BrainBox?
Well, it certainly does not automatically delete. It'll only automatically delete if you find a home for it. But the
Okay.
brain is never going to say, your brain box is too messy. I'm going to clean house here a little bit. It'll always be there, always be associated with your account. My rule of thumb, it's a personal choice. If you don't want any more than one or two items in your brain box, then okay, be vigilant and keep that brain box just tickety boo and nice and clean. Myself, on the other hand, once a scroll bar shows up, then I know, all right, time to clean up my brain box. Like I said, about a week or two ago, I had a scroll bar. This was actually probably 3 times this many links. But here's a nice little tip that I'll share with you. The brain can be opened in tabs. It's a tabbed interface. So here I've got my personal brain open. If I want to take a look at, the brain that Shelly shared with us today, information on the go, I've got that brain open in a separate tab. I can even click and drag and, have it appear in a different area or on a different monitor.
And I see your
Uh,
wonderful Shakespeare brain there that we all love.
Oh, yes. So I can click and I'll open up my Shakespeare brain.
Very popular
And
brain.
I can click and open up my brain box in its own tab. And this is kind of, it's really helpful, but it's also kind of a lot of fun because when your brain box starts filling up and you start saying, all right, where am I going to put all this stuff? I've been collecting all these things, but I'm got too much stuff. I can open up BrainBox in a separate tab. That way, when I click on a web page, I get a nice little preview. If I click on a photo, I get a preview.
Mhm.
And when I find where I want that item to go, I can go to that brain. So I keep the two open. And this is part of my hipster bike. Fixer parts, wood bike pedals, original bike details, inspiration, and I guess I don't have a thought yet for rack. So building a wood rack for my bike, that's where I want this content to go. Now I can just drag and drop. So that's kind of a lot of fun. That's just
Mhm.
another way of cleaning up your brain box, opening in a new tab, and simply drag and drop into the desired brain. And I can have different brains open and drag into the appropriate brain to drop in that content. And close at any time. But again, it's just a personal choice. There's no, you're not going to hit a limit like, oh, you've got 100 thoughts or 100 items. They aren't thoughts yet or haven't been associated with a thought. The brain's not going to clear those out for you. You can have a messy brain box if you want, but as soon as I see a scroll bar, I know it's time to start cleaning things up.
Sounds good. And then Glenn is asking, do you recommend using the brain as a bookmark manager? And absolutely, I don't even use
Hmm.
my bookmark manager anymore because it's just so great to, be
Yeah,
able to also make connections to those web links that you like and then take notes on them.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and Matt, if you want to talk about the differences between, I mean, in a sense, the brain is a bookmark manager on steroids. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen Jerry Mikulski's brain. What are we at, 250,000 thoughts? I don't know. I
Oh, he's
can't.
over half a
He's
million now,
he's
I
half a
think.
million, right? Okay,
Yeah,
so he's up there, and he's just it's all websites.
yeah,
It's not even files. So,
yeah.
do we recommend it? Yes.
Absolutely. I couldn't do what I do in work or recreationally with storing all of my important web pages in my browser bookmarks and favorites. Sometimes there's notes or images or files or passwords that go along with that info that you then have to store in a completely separate application or location, and they're totally disconnected. And you end up with this long linear list of favorite web pages or web pages you need for work. And there's really no rhyme or reason or order to it. I guess you could create subcategories and some things like that. But as soon as a file is is related to that web page, you're suddenly disconnected. And here I'm just in this area. I like to rebuild old bikes. So here you can see I've got a checklist of all of the different steps for fixing up this bike. I've got a picture of my bike
Oh, that's a nice bike.
as a
Is that your
zoomable
bike?
icon. That's my inspiration for my
Oh,
bike.
okay.
My bike
That's fine.
looks like this, but
That's
it's
nice too. Very
yeah,
nice. Very
well,
nice.
but it's going to look like this when
Okay.
it's done.
Very.
And
That's cool.
all the
Another
parts that
webinar topic.
yeah, all the parts that I need, and where I'm going to purchase them. Here I'm keeping track of how many teeth that you need in a gear or a sprocket for a single speed bike, where the best price for a brown leather bike seat, and so forth. So again, all of these web pages would be separate from my notes that I have, any purchases that I've made, or here's all my inspiration. So these are just typically just pictures of bikes that I
I
like that I
love
keep
using the
as
brain for
zoomable.
inspirations, whether
Yeah.
it's for work or personal, and the zoomable icons are amazing.
Yeah.
And I guess that really hits it in terms of we're talking about a knowledge base as opposed to a list. What is the difference between just a list of your Google search, your bookmarks, and a knowledge base? And it's really those connections and those semantic meanings that we imbue through the notes that we're adding, through making the connection and relating it to other aspects of our thinking in the brain. And so that's really where you want to be. And then of course taking this knowledge base on the go, because so that's a kind of a good question to understand why you want to move from I'm just in list mode to I'm in knowledge base mode, to creating that knowledge base.
Mhm.
And then Bruce is asking, can you illustrate how you would use a thought to look up properties to highlight relationships? Can you illustrate how you would use thought link properties to highlight relationships? Oh, okay. Well, there's a couple things. I'm not entirely sure on that question, but first of all, when you use the Dropbox to create a thought, if you start typing in cat or whatever, it will show you any other thought that is in your brain. So that way you're right there, so you can see, it will discover any mentions if you're putting in something the same. So that will eliminate redundancies. So that's one way in terms of when you're just creating new thoughts. And then as far as linking thoughts, of course, you can manually link them. And of course, you can do link types, which actually specify the relationship further between two thoughts. So I guess real quick, we can, if you have an example of link types or you want to create a quick link type, that might be interesting.
So here's sort of an area in my brain with where I'm using thought types. This is for rebuilding an old VW bus. And notice that some of them are some of the thoughts underneath, and these are all just intricate little steps of rebuilding the bus. So new brake calipers, fixing the brakes themselves, the cover of the brake, the emblem, the timing light, the headrest, and so forth. Notice some of them are green. So when I highlight over, I can see that that item, the new ignition switch, has been purchased and installed. And if I go to click on that thought, you can see that ignition switch pulls up the website where it was purchased. It falls under VW parts, falls under installed, and it falls under a thought I have called my items. So that it falls under a few different categories, but I can see that that particular step is done. I purchased the item, I installed it. Incomplete just means it's, like it says, it's not done yet. Yellow, it's halfway there, it's partially complete, which means I purchased it, but I haven't installed it yet. So I'm keeping track of progress with my thought types in this scenario. And the cross references, the deeper meaning of you know where thoughts exist within a brain. I could go down to find all of my parts that I've installed, or I can just look at parts in general, all parts, whether it's installed or not. I know I need to buy it, or I bought it, haven't installed it, and so forth. It falls under both of those categories. And I mean, I've got so many of this type of relationship throughout my brain. I could go pretty much anywhere. If I go to NICA, so this is my kids mountain biking club that they're in. I start going into coaching, the rule book. Well, I guess that's all for 2021, but I'll start seeing in some areas of my brain where I've got so many cross references, because it doesn't matter if I'm thinking about this as and unfortunately, of course, I'm not hitting one at all right now. But there we go, Marlin 7. It's a bike. It's one of the options that I was looking at purchasing for a new mountain bike. It also falls under Trek. So regardless of whether I'm thinking about, hey, here's a bike that I need for my kids' mountain biking team, or here's a bike company I like, and here's one of the models of their, in their mountain biking line that I like. So I can very easily find all the different cross references that I may have.
And that's powerful when you're dealing with search too. Another question came up earlier about what we search and index. So if you don't necessarily, we do like to click around because it's fun. And of course, you'll end up doing that in your brain. But the brain has a very powerful search and indexing. So if you know where you want to go, or you can't find something, you can just type it into the search box, and it'll also search the contents of the documents as well as the thought names.
Yes. And this is a good example, like I was saying, Wheel and Sprocket is a bike shop here in my hometown. I purchased the Marlin 7. It's on order from there. It falls under things that I've recently purchased, so I'm keeping track of things that I've bought. And it also falls under outside family. Outside family is a category that I keep track of if I ever need to purchase gifts for friends, or my kids are going to a birthday party and they want to bring something, like I've got just different ideas of local things that they can purchase and buy. Outside family, a $10 or $15 gift certificate to the big bike shop in town. And all my kids' friends are all bikers, so that this comes up a lot. So it falls under 3 different categories, and it just gives me greater insight into how my brain works, all the different relationships that this one particular thought has within the structure of the brain I've created.
Yeah, what you can achieve is a multi-dimensional categorization. So instead of just having your one folder or bike part or whatever it is in one particular category, it can be connected to many different things, which is very helpful because we think in many different contexts, and we
Yes.
make many connections in our minds. And in terms of segmenting, Ron had a question about how you separate existing information in one large brain into a separate brain. And I guess the best way to do it is we could show maybe the mass select, copy and
Yeah,
paste a little bit into another brain.
sure. I'll just grab since we talked about this earlier, let's say I wanted to get my Zion information into a separate brain. I'm gonna, share a copy of my Zion brain with my wife. I can control click on individual thoughts, and this is on a Windows machine. If you're on a Mac, you're gonna command click. I can control click on a gate to select all thoughts connected to that gate. If I control click again, it's like a toggle switch. It'll unselect those thoughts. So many different options. I can also control click and drag to select anything within that frame. I'm going to start over. I'm just going to control click on national parks, and I'm going to go to thought. Nope, sorry, edit, and scroll down to select related thoughts. So I'm actually going to create a national parks brain. So I selected the thought, and now I'm saying add to my selection box every child thought for, we'll just say 7 generations away, and say okay. And there you can see it added 28 thoughts to my selection box. I can
Nice.
right click and copy those 28 thoughts. And I'll click on File and select to create a new brain. So my new brain is going to be called NP, National Parks, NPS, National Park Service. Now, randomly, it just happened to select the same wallpaper I had in my
Yeah,
other
it was
brain.
actually, I want to
Yeah.
see these Zion Mountains, Matt.
Oh, well, let's change it to that. I've actually got a couple of good ones. Seafoam, no, that's the one. Solid
I feel
white
like seeing
geyser.
some red rock. Okay, at least,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a
there
little
we
more
go.
hikish,
And you can
hiking-ish.
change it. You can
Okay,
change it also.
right.
Like, keep in mind,
We're so over
I
time
still have
anyway.
all those thoughts on my clipboard,
Yeah,
but if I right click, I can go into my brain theme, and on the options tab, this is where I can change
wallpaper,
the wallpaper. So
some
select,
nice red rock.
and oh, look what I have. Shelly, you're gonna be so
Oh,
happy.
Angel's Landing.
That's Angel's Landing.
Be still my heart. That
So
hike was crazy. And I literally mean be still my heart because that hike is crazy.
that is the trail right there.
That's the trail. Yeah.
So now
Okay.
remember, I
Anyway,
still have those thoughts on my clipboard.
yes.
I right click in the background and I paste. And it takes just a moment because it's pasting everything. all of your file attachments, your notes, your graphics, your documents, everything that was in that other brain. And there you can see it's reloading that web page over and over for some
And
reason.
Ron is saying, awesome. I wanted to take the personal stuff out of public view, and this is so cool.
Yeah. And so now I've got
Yeah.
this smaller
Hmm.
subset of thoughts, right? My other brain, remember, I had all this stuff on bikes and VW buses and canning pickles and just things like that. Now I just have a brain that's only about my national parks content. This is the brain that I'll sync to the cloud. So I click on sync.
And look at that wallpaper. Give me access to this one. I want in
I
on
sure
this one.
will. I'll
Okay.
go into
I want
now.
access on
Shelly and
this
I
one.
have Team Brain. So
Yeah.
once it's synced, I'll let it sync in the background. Once it's synced or uploaded,
It's going to
I'll be
take a
able
little
to share
time
this brain with Shelly so that she'll
because
have
of the web
access
meeting.
to it. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we're a little bit slower because we've got GoTo running. But I think with that, yes, private. You can do private sharing as well, or he can publish this publicly in that online options. There's the various options, so you can get pretty granular in terms of the level of access that you want to provide. So I think with that, we probably need to close the seminar. We're 20 minutes into overtime and we've covered a lot. We offer free technical support to all users. Chat is available from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. So chat in with us. Join us on 101. We have a fantastic webinar coming up next month on innovation, where we're going to debut electric cars and our space brain and all kinds of cool stuff. So you don't want to miss that one. Sign up.
Yeah, a
And
lot
also
of
sign
fun.
up for the 101. We can actually on that particular weekly webinar, it's a great roundup. So if you even want to drop in just to get a feature demo, because it's a smaller class size, we can literally demo literally every question that comes on it. So,
Yeah.
we can give you even more attention that way if you need it. So with that, I wish you all well in creating your smart notes and your knowledge base on the go. Matt, any final words of wisdom before we close our session today?
Well, I just want to share with everyone, you'll receive a link to today's recording so you could watch it at your own pace. We covered a lot of information today, but also you can always reach us, support@thebrain.com. We're happy to answer any additional questions you may have in the future about the application, features, licensing, so forth. So we're always available at support@thebrain.com. We're happy to hear from you.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. I look forward to seeing you on future Brain Technologies webinars, and go forth and digitally garden and create that knowledge base on the go, just maybe not on Angel's Landing as you're hiking in the daylight. But other than that, that'll be nice. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye.